Hello again. This is Unit 7, dealing with circles. Lesson number 2, we're going to practice the process of completing the square to find the center and radius of a circle and recognizing the equations of circles. So the equation of a circle will have an x squared and a y squared both. So if we want to complete the square in order to find the center point and the radius point, we want to have the coefficient in front of our x term to be a 1. So that means when we use the process of completing the square to try to solve a quadratic, or if we are trying to deal with a circle, what we need to have is the coefficient of our squared terms to be a 1. So similar to in this example, what we might have to do is divide by the coefficient of the x squared term. That leaves us with a positive x squared left over. And then each term of our equation will also get divided by 2. So the 8x divided by 2 becomes 4x. The 20 divided by 2 becomes 10, and the 100 divided by 2 becomes 50. Now, with what's left, we can go ahead and complete the square. So I'm going to take my x terms, and I'm going to move the 10 to the other side. And I got to remember to make sure I add my new number, which would be our b divided by 2, and then squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So then this will factor into x plus 2x plus 2, which is x plus 2 squared. Then we're going to square root both sides. Then we have x plus 2 equals plus or minus radical 44. We can either simplify the radical 44 right now or wait till we bring over the 2. I'm just going to wait till I bring the 2 over. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, plus or minus. And then the square root of 44 simplifies into 4 times 11, which would be 2 radical 11. And that's our solution using the process of completing the square. Now let's use that process to find our center and radius for the equation that's next. X squared minus 16x plus y squared equals 36. This is what we did in the previous lesson. So here what we're going to do is take our x terms and group them together. Take the y term and just leave it because there's only y squared, no other y values with it. So I don't have to complete the square with the y's, just the x's. And remember that whatever number I use to complete the square with the x's, I must put on both sides of the equation. So then I take my b term divided by 2, square it, add it to both sides. Then I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2, which is 8, squared is 64. So when I factor the x values, they're going to factor into the number that I had before I squared it. So the factor comes from whatever negative 16 divided by 2 is, which would be x minus 8 and x minus 8, or x minus 8 squared. So now I can pick up my center point. Remember that the coordinates for our center point are the opposite sign as what we see in the equation. So when we see x minus 8 squared, that means our center point would be an x coordinate of positive 8. Since there's nothing with the y, that means our y coordinate is 0. And then the square root of 100 is our radius of 10. So why don't you go ahead, pause the video, try question number 3. Come back when you got the result, and we'll see how you did. So if you got the center at -2,6 with a radius of 9, then fantastic. I probably have a lot more steps shown than you do, which is okay. That's fine if you don't show all your steps, but you do have to remember that you have to show some work. All right? Make good habits for yourselves. All right, so next the question says, what is the radius of a circle whose center is at 310 and passes through the point 1212? So we want to know the radius. Well, we just figure out if the center of the circle is at 310 and the circle goes through the point 1212, then the distance from the center to any point on the circle is the radius. So we're going to use our distance formula. We'll do the distance from the center point to the point on the circle. So x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Punch that into your calculator. You should put into your calculator, you should only type in the part underneath the radical without the square root. That way, when you're done, you'll have an exact number to go inside of your radical, and you'll get radical 85 and not the decimal version of square root of 85. The calculator won't go backwards from the decimal into a square root. It can do that with fractions, but not square roots. Well, now that we know the radius and we know the center of the circle, let's write the equation. So go ahead and take a few seconds, use the center of the circle and the radius we just found, and write the equation of that circle. And there we go. Don't forget the square, the radical 85 turns into 85 because radical 85 squared is 85. All right, a circle with a center at 2, -5 is tangent to the x-axis. All right. I don't think we've talked about what it means for something to actually be tangent. We did sine, cosine, and tangent. But when tangent is used as an adjective, that means it touches once. And we're going to use this word a lot during this unit. Now, touches once is different from intersecting. If you have a line intersect a circle, then it's going to intersect twice. That's intersecting. That's a line intersecting a circle. Tangent is when the line just touches the circle once on the outside. All right? So this is intersecting. This is tangent. That's the difference between the two. So if our circle is tangent to the x-axis, that means it touches the x-axis. So if our center point is at 2, -5, and our circle is tangent or touches the x-axis, that means the radius goes from our center to the x-axis. That's our radius. And our circle would go around from there. That is radius of 5. So our radius of the circle is going to be 5. Now that we know the radius and we know the center of the circle, write the equation. And there we go. Okay, 2 points in a plane, point A at 4, -9, and point B at -3, -6, represent the endpoints of a diameter of a circle. What are the coordinates of the center of the circle? Well, let's visualize this. Makeshift graph, 4, -9, -3, -6. So our diameter, that's the endpoints of the diameter, so that means our circle will look something like that. How do we find the center of the circle? Well, the center of the circle is the midpoint of the diameter. So I'll just use our midpoint formula. So for our midpoint formula, add the two x's, divide by 2, add the two y's, divide by 2. So we can either leave it in fraction form or write it in decimal form, really doesn't matter. That's the center of our circle. Now, define the radius. What some people will do is take the endpoints of the diameter, find the distance, and divide it by 2. But if you use the center point and use the either A or B, one of the points on the circle, then you won't have to worry about taking your radical diameter length and then dividing it by 2. So let's just use the center of the circle, one of the points on the circle. So our center point is going to be like somewhere over here. So you can either find the distance from the center of the circle to B or from the center of the circle to A. So we're just going to do the distance formula. With our center point. And I guess I'll do point A. Alright, so go to your calculator, bang that out, and make sure you get radical 14.5. Doesn't simplify, but it works fine. And then what we're going to do is write the equation of our circle, because we know the center point. And we know our radius, radical 14.5. When we square that, it becomes just 14.5 for our equation of our circle. Woo, wonderful. All right, so could the equation x squared minus 6x plus y squared minus 7 equals 0 have a radius of 4? Could that be? Oh my goodness, I don't know. Why don't we investigate and find out? Okay, so why don't you go ahead and investigate, because I already know the answer. So what I want you to do is go ahead and complete the square, figure out the radius. The answer is yes. Our radius is 4. And on to the next one. Stella says that the equation x squared minus 8x plus y squared plus 2y equals 5 has a center at 4, negative 2, and a radius of radical 22. Is she correct? Why or why not? Well, let's see if Stella's right. Why don't you pause it, do the work, and then come back, and we'll see if you and Stella are correct or incorrect. Pause it, do it, come back. No, Stella is not correct, because r squared is equal to radical 22 from the equation. So our radius would actually be radical 22. Or, I'm sorry, yeah. The r squared equals 22. I have it written wrong. The r squared equals 22, which means her radius is radical 22. R squared equals 22, so r, the radius, is radical 22. That's what it's supposed to be here. No radical there. Alright, so off you go. Practice some of these, and then use the answer key as you need. The answer key is in Teams, or contact me if you have any issues, and I'll see you soon. Talk to you soon. Take care.